let's take a look at the onions. See how they fared their first night in the bed. How are you, ladies? Hello, Sam. And then we'll get on to the title of this week's video. And I'll tell you a little story about Sean in Alaska. Well, it looked pretty good. It doesn't look like I lost anything last night, which is super awesome. And then every time I come down here, you're going to get the shot of the potatoes, which are going crazy right now. I love it. I love it. So I thought that with the title that I had, I'd give you guys a little bit of the story behind what's going on here. When I bought the property, I used an app to figure out where the property lines were, and I was pretty happy. I was pretty confident that I was correct. But if you look directly behind me here, you see that big cargo container, and it showed up a week ago. It's been in a couple of videos now. Big old shipping container, and they did a ton of work next door on the property. And this whole thing started last year. So somebody bought the property next door to me, and then some heavy equipment came in, and they were cutting a road in, and they were pushing a bunch of stuff around. And Todd, my neighbor, came over and told them, "Hey, I think you're on Sean's property." And so they stopped, and they supposedly double-checked and everything else. And then I offered to, I said, just contact the owner. I said, so that we are all 100% correct, contact the owner, give him my phone number, and tell him I'm more than happy to pay for half of the survey if he wants to have his property surveyed, so that we know exactly where the line's at. I was under the impression that I had built too close to my property line, even though I had measured everything out. And I was pretty confident in where it was at. I was so concerned about it that where I had originally planned on putting the additional bedroom on the cabin, flipped over to the other side because I thought I was way too close to that property line. So everything kind of came to a head about 2 or 3 weeks ago. This has been bothering me since this happened last year because I couldn't believe I was that far off. So everything came to a head a couple of weeks ago when another contractor came in, filled up a hole over there, graded everything, and then put that container behind there. And I thought, man, there is no way I can be this far off. Well, I had already, once they started working on it again, I had already contacted a surveyor on my own and decided that I was going to have the whole place surveyed. I should have done that when I bought it. Shame on me for not doing it. But for whatever reason, I didn't. You know, I was doing this whole thing cash. So I hired a surveyor. He contacted me 2 days ago and said, hey, look, I know we said we were going to be 4 weeks before we could get out there to do anything, but we got like a half a day, so we're going to try and come out tomorrow. That was yesterday. So I ran to town for some errands. Ward had come by the house, and Ward sends me a text and says, congratulations, you're the proud owner of a Connex. So I'll take you for a walk and show you where the original dispute was and where we ended up. But when it was all said and done, it turns out that over a quarter of the work done on this property behind me is on my land. Now, I'm not the kind of person that snaps and goes crazy on somebody. I know for a fact that the owner of that property does not live in Alaska, that he bought it with the intent of building a house there so that he has a place to come and go fishing. I have no problem with that at all. My neighbors on the other side are the same way. They're only here during the summer, and they live in Alaska, but they're only down on the peninsula during the summer. So I contacted the second contractor that did all of this work because he's a local guy. I called him yesterday afternoon as soon as I knew where the survey stakes were, and let him know what was going on. He had my phone number. I said, give it to the owner, have the owner give me a call. I wanted to get this done before any construction ensued because that would have been a nightmare for everybody involved. The owner called me back this morning. Great, gracious, super nice guy. He had no idea what was going on. He was told by the previous contractor that the property lines were where he said they were. He was never told that I had a conversation with him about it, just that my neighbor Todd did. He was never told that I had offered to pay for half of a survey because the guy, when I'm talking on the phone, he works for a big bank back east. He goes, dude, I would have jumped on that. You know, I would have saved half the money to survey my property. So everything's going to work out now. I'm much happier about the whole situation. He's not as happy because he spent a whole lot of money doing a lot of dirt work, and I'll show you what he did over there. And a lot of the trees that were back on the property over here, I'll walk you through. with the camera are all gone, but most of those were dead anyway. But this was a nightmare that's been bothering me for a little over a year, and man, it's like a weight off my shoulders right now. I'm not kidding you. So let me take the cell phone camera over. I'll walk you through the area, show you where my property's at, and show you what work was done. And the golden lining in this is that the new owner contacted me and said, hey, I want to pay for half of the price of that survey that you had done, which is awesome, you know, because I was just going to pay for it all myself. So he's going to reimburse me for half of that, and then all the extra dirt work that they did over there, I now have a new pad for a cabin, for another cabin, which is something I had talked to the kids about. Eventually, I'd like to build 2 cabins more on this property, one for my daughter, or for each one of my daughters, and then they could do with it whatever they wanted. They got a place to stay when they come up. They could decorate it how they want. They can make it their own little piece of Alaska. But let me walk you through, because it was absolutely crazy the way this whole thing came down. So when I laid this property out, before I did anything, I had gone back into these trees, and you'll see that there's a stake here now. All right, I'd gone back into these trees back here, and using an app called OnX, I had found what I thought was the property line, and it was basically, I don't know if I've got it hanging back here right now. I probably hang it, oh, I do, as a matter of fact. So let me see if I can zoom in on this for you. Just found it. Okay, see that plastic strip right there? That's where I thought my property line was, okay? This is actually where my property line is. So it's actually probably about 3 or 4 feet this side of those trees to me. Zoom it back out. So when the contractor got here and I saw where he was going with all of his equipment, I said, dude, I think that's my property. He thought that the property line ran like right here to this tree. So that meant I was super close with the corner of this cabin, and I was not comfortable about that. But I was really sure that this was my property, that I couldn't have been off by that far. So now we'll take a little walk in the woods here, and I'll show you. Right, there is one marker. And then if I look down through the trees here, there is another marker right over here. And that's the marker that will start from. I mean, it had me so worked up that I was like, look, I want to cut these trees down because they're dead, but I have to talk to the new owner of the lot to make sure that I can do this. Here we go. So the difference is huge between that stake and the corner of my building. I mean, that's a huge, huge difference. But this guy had all this dirt work done, and when he had it done, the bulk of it was this last couple of weeks. I looked at it and I said, there is no way. There is no way that that's not my property. And so when the surveyor came out, he staked everything. So, if you look at this, there's a stake, there's another stake, everything to the right of that is mine. Better line here for you. So this Connex is actually on my property, and all this stuff back here that was cleared, this is all, I mean, from where I'm standing here, this is all my property right here. And I'm so glad, I am so thankful I contacted that guy earlier, or that I contacted him last night and that he called me back today, because his plans were to have a contractor build him a shop back here, and that shop would have ended up on my land. What really set this off for me in the last couple of weeks was I laid out that garden thinking that, you know, this area back here was mine, and then when they put this in, I thought, well, this can't be right. Something's really got to be wrong. And it was. And I'm not, you know, like I said, I'm not upset at all about the trees being gone here. because most of the stuff that was back here was dead, right? I mean, look at all the dead trees in there. It's absolutely crazy. I'm just happy that we got this fixed before any permanent structures were put in, because that would have been a serious, serious issue. The bonus for me means that I also have all this firewood that they knocked down on these bigger trees, which is super awesome. But yeah, look at dead tree, dead tree, dead tree, dead tree. These are dead trees. That's a dead tree. That's a dead tree. But this poor guy, man, I'm telling you, he was beside himself. He was absolutely beside himself. Super nice guy. His name is Al. And he's going to be back up here in like 2 weeks for the fish run. And when I talked to him on the phone this morning, I explained the whole situation to him, you know, that I had issues last year, that I told the contractor, you know, to have him get in touch with me. And then he had told me that the contractor had never even mentioned me, that he'd even talked to me. And then I had told him that, you know, after this, and I might have mentioned it in a video or two before, I would occasionally see the contractor coming into the store that I work at in town, and whenever he would see me, he would, you know, I got the feeling he was dodging me. Whenever he would see me, he would kind of go the other direction. So I don't know why people do this. I don't know why. Personal responsibility is huge for me. I don't know why when somebody says, hey, we might have a problem, and they give you every opportunity in the world to fix said problem before it becomes a nightmare, why you wouldn't just take it? Why wouldn't you just jump on that? But anyway, what turned out, or what was going to be a serious, serious issue, had somebody built on that property, has now hopefully become resolved. And as a bonus, that area is all cleared for me, and I could slap a cabin back on there. Like I said, the new neighbor seems like a great guy. We talked on the phone for about an hour, and anybody who knows me knows I don't talk on the phone that long. Really interesting, really nice. Explained to me what his plans are for his property. So much so that, you know, when the whole thing was done, I said, dude, feel comfortable that nobody will touch your stuff. Now that I have your phone number, I'll keep an eye on everything for you that's on the property. As far as the Connex goes, he said, I'll get somebody out there to move it right away. And I said, don't even bother. I go, wait till you get up here. We'll decide what we're going to do then. We'll discuss, you know, when it's got to be moved, because I would rather not have it on there at winter, you know, so that he can move it to where it's going to be. Because then, you know, something happens to him down the road, who's going to say that I didn't give them permission? But yeah, it was absolutely crazy, absolutely crazy. And there's a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders, knowing where my property line is 100% now. The other thing is, I walked it all the way back to the very back and realized how much deeper this property is than I ever thought it was. It's over 400 feet deep. I got 1.4 acres here, and man, more plans are popping in my head to do different stuff with it now. Anyway, that's the update on what's going on. Why the title of the video was what it was. And while I'm not looking forward to having a house, you know, right out my back window there, it's just going to be a weekend place, and it's going to be more over there now, since everything there over is mine. So it'll be out of sight, but it's nice to have. It's nice to have it resolved, somewhat, and it'll be completely resolved here in a couple of weeks. But man, am I glad. Am I so glad I contacted that survey crew, and I am awesome, super, super, super appreciative of the fact that they got it done when they did, before anybody built anything, man, because, you know, now we're talking a whole lot more on this side, which will allow me to throw the bedroom over here like I originally wanted anyway. So yeah, I'm happy.